In 1973, a computer did something no human dared to do. It didn't predict the next war. It didn't predict the next invention. It predicted us, our growth, our hunger, our limits. Built inside a quiet room at MIT, this machine simulated the entire planet. And what it saw was terrifying, not because the future was unknown, but because it was familiar. This is the story of World 3, the computer model that asked a simple question: what happens if humanity never stops growing? In the late 1960s, the world was booming. Population was exploding, factories were multiplying, cities were growing faster than ever. To most people, this looked like progress. But a small group of scientists asked a dangerous question: what happens if growth never stops? This question reached the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, and instead of debating it philosophically, they decided to let a computer answer. The project was led by Donella and Dennis Meadows, systems scientists at MIT. They didn't try to predict politics, wars, or individual countries. Instead, they modeled the entire planet as one system. The computer was called World 3. It was a software model. It ran on MIT mainframe computers. Um, World 3 tracked 5 critical variables: population, industrial production, food production, non renewable resources, and pollution. And most importantly, how these factors interacted with each other over time. This wasn't science fiction. It didn't imagine the future. It calculated it using feedback loops, real numbers, and the world we were already living in. Then they pressed run. The results were not hopeful. In scenario after scenario, World 3 showed the same pattern. Human civilization grows rapidly, hits planetary limits, and then collapses. Not instantly, not dramatically, but gradually. And then all at once. Resources get depleted, pollution rises, food production falls, population peaks, then crashes. According to the most realistic scenario, this collapse would begin in the mid 21st century. That meant somewhere around 2030 to 2050. In 1972, the findings were published in a book called The Limits to Growth. It sold millions of copies, and it caused an explosion of controversy. Critics called it alarmist, anti growth, and anti capitalist. Economists said technology would save us. Politicians said growth was necessary. Industries said the model underestimated human innovation. The world largely dismissed the warning. Growth continued, consumption accelerated. Um, the book slowly faded from headlines, but the computer model never went away. Decades later, something strange happened. Researchers began comparing to real world data with World 3's original projections, and the curves matched: population growth, industrial output, resource use, pollution levels. Again and again, reality followed the same trajectory World 3 predicted. In 2008, a study by Australian scientist Graham M. Turner in Melbourne Sustainable Society Institute found that 30 years of real data closely aligned with the model's business as usual scenario. The computer from the 1970s wasn't wildly wrong, it was disturbingly accurate. Here's the part most people miss. World 3 didn't predict one fixed future. It ran multiple scenarios. Some ended in collapse, others didn't. The difference between the scenarios that did end in collapse and the ones that did not were these slower population growth, sustainable resource use, pollution control, and long term thinking over short term profit. In other words, collapse wasn't destiny. It was a consequence of choices. World 3 is still being updated today, not as a doomsday machine, but as a mirror. It doesn't say, this will happen. It says, if we continue like this, here's where it leads. The most terrifying part of World 3 was never the prediction. It was the fact that we were warned early and chose to look away. So the question isn't whether the computer was right. The question is, are we still following the same path it warned us about, or have we finally decided to change it?